everybody, how are you doing today? I am Eric Anderson. This is the Grid Grooves channel where we take a look we find new and interesting ways to apply the 4-2-1 grid system to playing the drum set so that we can improve our skills. And as you can see today, this Grid Groove session has to do with our ability to move around the drum set when putting together rhythms and feels, right? So that's really kind of the goal. What this particular video is about is just to help you deal with some of these issues that interfere with your ability to move around, and that's what I'm going to share with you, is the issues that I have in particular. Along with that, then I'm also going to break down this particular grid groove that I was working with. I'm going to play it at 50, at 75, and then at 100 beats a minute, and then I'm going to share with you some ideas about how you can use this particular grid sequence or this particular 4-2-1 grid, and you can apply it to the drum set that you have in creative ways to come up with very interesting and different kinds of feels that you may not have thought about otherwise. So as we continue to go forward, like I mentioned, the goal of this video and what we're doing this for is to share with you some ideas on how to move around the drum set and how to unlock some creativity. So please keep that in mind as we go forward. And at the end of the video, please let us know if we actually hit that target or not. So here we go. We're going to jump right into this. I'm going to be straight up with you. When it comes down to moving around the drum set, it is probably the one part of being a drum set guy that it's the one thing that I'm worst at, I guess is the best way to put it. I always feel tight. A lot of times I feel like unimaginative, uncreative, and things like that. So this is what's cool, is that getting into this grid and purposefully working it around the drum set, it's forcing me to deal with the issues that I have with my playing, and that is by far and away the best benefit of the Grid Groove system, is that when you have a problem, believe me, it's going to draw that problem out, and that's your cue that you have something to work on. In respect to working around the drum set, I'm going to share with you a few things that I've improved a little bit because of this one exercise. One has to do with the mechanics of motion, or the motion of the sticks. And here's what's very, very important to catch. There's actually two motions that are going on simultaneously that from the shoulder all the way down to the fingertip has to coordinate. The first motion is just the up and down vertical motion of the stick. It doesn't matter what instrument you're playing on, from the wrist to the fingertips, that is the part of your arm that is responsible for getting a good vertical motion. And it doesn't matter what instrument you're playing on, you just got to get that nice vertical motion, and so that when you're playing your accents and your taps, they still come through as accents and taps. But then from the wrist to the shoulder, obviously this applies to both arms, this is what is being repositioned around the drum set, so that when you add your stick in, I play here for 4, and then I reposition to here for 4, and then to here, and then to here. But the idea is this, and this is a common thing that I've suffered with, and I've heard it from many drummers as well by listening to them. The goal is the arm needs to keep moving side to side while the drum stick keeps moving up and down freely because of what the wrist and the fingers doing, like this. But it's a very common thing that when the thumb starts to tighten up, then it causes the wrist to tighten up. And once the wrist tightens up, now you're playing from the elbow, which is really which is a significant part of moving around the drum set, is the role of the elbow and the shoulder. But once this elbow tightens up and it tries to do what the wrist and the fingers are trying to do, then you kind of get this sound out of your drums and out of your cymbals as well, because you've got tight here actually on your elbow. And so this whole flowing around the drum set and allowing the wrist and the fingers to play the stick on the circle, while the arm is moving my sticks, while my arms are repositioning the sticks to different instruments for my drumsticks to play on. that has always been a big challenge of mine, because usually I lock up in the elbow and I lock up in the shoulder, and then I feel like I'm so tight, and then I'm playing like this. And you can hear it from the drums. They're telling you they're really tight, as opposed to, you can hear how much of a difference in sound that you get from the sticks when your hands stay loose, when your wrist and your thumbs are deliberately controlling the vertical movement of the stick, while from the wrist to the shoulders, it is repositioning the stick to the next instrument on your drum set to play. So for me, that's been a big issue. Along with that, another issue that I've run into is just, it's an independence issue. And what I mean by that is that, like when we're doing this in the as just accents and taps, where it's right, one hand is always playing some accent tap pattern while the other hand is just playing straight taps all the way through. So it's not too difficult to pick up on that. But then when you start to add in this movement around the drum set, where one hand has to continue playing taps while the other hand is moving around the drums. So now you have the accent patterns, or the accent tap patterns, that are going on, plus this independent motion and movement of one arm while the other one stays in place. It makes for an entirely different kind of scenario. So like if you take stage 3 in this, and I'm just going to take it nice and slow, you get movement from the right arm, and then movement from the left arm, and then you kind of get this 3-note pattern where both arms kind of seem to be moving at the same time. That's all independence, right? So it'll look like this, right? So it's stage 3, taking it slow, is right. So you see that there's this independent motion that each arm needs to be able to execute without interfering and affecting how the other arm is playing the notes that it's supposed to play. The other thing that this particular grid has drawn out is that at the end of the yellow rhythms in particular, well actually the green and the yellow rhythms force my left hand to cross over my right to get to either this tom or to this floor tom here. And me and crossovers have never gotten along well, so this has been forcing me to work on that crossover issue, like from the green rhythm, 2, 3, 4. Right, and it's just getting this stick to stay low and getting it back just a little bit, finding that right spot where as the crossover takes place, you see how I got the left wrist right over the right hand just a little bit, and typically I like to take advantage of just this little bit of space that I have here. So I'm like much more so the left wrist is over the index finger, and then as I move to this floor tom, it gets all the way over the wrist. And then when I move out to this tom, I actually pull the right hand back over just a little bit, so it gives me some clearance here. So those are like 3 issues that I've really had to deal with when trying to put this one together. So it's actually taken me a bit of time. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to break this down at 50 beats a minute, so kind of slow, so you can see how the whole thing goes together. And then I'm going to go to 75, and then I'm going to go to 100. So before I do that, let me just review each of the 4 rhythmic patterns that are being played. So what we're doing is we're taking accent tap patterns, and what I'm doing is that I'm just, wherever the accents are at, they're just being played on the toms. So the blue rhythm, so let me back this up here. If you go back and you take a look at the last video and you listen to that samba groove that we were playing, and how the accented notes that I'm going to be playing today were actually played on the rim of the snare, like snare clicks like this, where, from that samba kind of pattern, we had this. So the blue rhythm sounded like the green, red, yellow. So that was each one, the blue, green, red, and yellow accent patterns that were played just on the rim clicks. So now I'm going to take those 4 rhythmic ideas the blue, green, and I'm just going to orchestrate those accents around the drum set. So starting with the blue, right? So we've got 1, 2, blue, go. Green, 2, ready, go. Red, ready, go. 1, 2. Now to yellow, ready, go. So that's the 4 rhythms that are going to be worked with, and I'm going to run through that same 4, 2, 1 grid pattern like we always do, right? So here we go, right? We're going to do this one at 50 beats a minute, and we're just going to see what happens with this. So I'm going to go stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So let's see how this whole thing goes. So how about 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, so that was it at 50 beats a minute. So now we're going to go to 75 beats a minute. So the tempo is going to go up a little bit, and I'm going to do my best to play the same pattern, and let's see what happens here. All right, so there it is at 75. So now we're going to go to 100 beats a minute, which is the original, which is the tempo that we played at the very beginning of the video. So here we go. Okay, so there it is. That is one application of the same 4 rhythmic patterns, accent tap patterns played in a 4-2-1 sequence known as the grid. So I'm gonna bring this up because hopefully this will kind of address a question that's going through your mind. I know that I have this set and I love this set, and I'm gonna be very candid with you. I call this my vanity set. And here's why I call it that. I would love to take this drum set to every gig, but I'm going to be very candid with you. There's 2 reasons why I don't. Number one, this, as big as this drum set is, it's not going to fit into some of the venues that I might play. So it would just be senseless to try to make it fit in there. And number 2, and I'm just being very candid with you, I'm just too lazy. If I can go with just a hi-hat, a snare drum, a bass drum, and a ride cymbal, and I can do a 4-hour gig on that, I would be very, very happy to do that. And some people are sitting there, you may be sitting there and saying, it's like, well, yeah, you can do like all this cool stuff because you have all these drums that are readily available. And yes, that is a true statement, and yet it's not completely true. I can do a lot of cool stuff because I'm willing to explore the sound that all of my instruments make available to me, and then use those in interesting ways to put ideas together. And this is why I say that. Let's just say, just for the fun of it, let's just say that I'm at a gig where all I have is the hi-hat, the snare drum, the bass drum, and the ride cymbal, and that's all that I got. But I have to do some fills and things like that in the context of any given song to keep things kind of interesting and cue the band that we're going from one section of the song to the next. And specifically, I want to work with this 4-2-1 grid pattern that we've been playing with, and I want to work it over just the hi-hat, the snare drum, the ride cymbal, and that's what my hands are going to work, while the bass drum is either playing along with the accents or if it's just keeping the beat. Well, now that I've taken all these drums out of the equation, to be honest with you, this actually pushes my creativity all that much more, because it forces you to discover how many different sounds can you get out of the hi-hat, how many different sounds can you get from your snare drum, how many different sounds can you get from your ride cymbal, and how do you want to orchestrate or arrange those available sounds from only 3 instruments into a fill that sounds interesting and works really, really well. So like one thing that I could do is, I'm just going to show you a couple of ways that I would get creative with the same accent tap pattern, and I would just work it across the hi-hat, the ride cymbal, the hi-hat, the snare drum, and the ride cymbal in different ways, in I don't know, as many different ways as I can figure out how to do that. So one of them would be that I play the entire accent tap pattern from stage 3, and I'm just going to work with stage 3 on this, and I apply that to just the hi-hat. So here's a basic rock beat, right? Keep it nice and slow. Now here comes stage 3, stage 3, ready. Right? So I played the same accent pattern, right? And I just played it on just my hi-hat, and as you heard the bass drum, is wherever those accents were played, that's where the bass drum played. Like that. And you could do that, and it's a great fill that gives everybody a little short break from what the main drum set is doing, and then you can get right back into it. But maybe you want to work that same accent tap pattern between the hi-hat and the ride cymbal, so you get that same rock pattern going. I got a different pattern stuck in my head. Let me try that again. Here we go. So stage. As a matter of fact, like you could even do this, the nice crossover between the snare and the hi-hat as the beginning of the song, right? I did it again. So there's like 3 different ideas off of just the snare, the hi-hat, and the ride cymbal. And believe me, there are more ideas than that just in there. But this is the call to creativity that I want to inspire you to. Sit down and just ask yourself, what if I did this with this 4-2-1 grid accent tap pattern, and what if I applied it to my hi-hat, snare, and ride cymbal like this? And then you just sit down and you grind it out until you figure it out. And then you come up with another way of playing that same accent tap pattern over these 3 instruments. And here's the cool thing. You're not going to get it wrong because when you're going deep into the creative element, you don't get things wrong. You just learn and you discover what you like and what you don't like. Some things you're going to really love, some things you're not going to like at all, and you're going to say, I would never do that. But you just never know until you sit down and start exploring it. And that's really what this is about. So that right there is pretty much the end of this, right? I talked a little bit about some of the issues that this particular grid has been helping me to unlock in my own playing. And then I give you a demonstration of this grid at 50 beats a minute, at 75 beats a minute, and at 100 beats a minute. And then finally I talked about and showed some ideas of how to be creative with the same grid. And my friends, that is the goal of these videos that we put together. This one in particular, the goal is to help you develop better flow or movement around the drum set, and the goal is to help you unlock your own creativity on the drum set. So let me ask you, did we reach that goal? Did we unlock some creativity ideas for you? Did we give you some good tips on developing better movement and flow around the drum set? Did the pattern kind of give you some ideas that you can sit down on your drum set and start working with? If we did reach that goal, and we sincerely hope that we did, then do us a favor. First and foremost, share this video with other people. Because the goal of this entire channel and what we're trying to do here is to get good information out to drummers so that they can take these ideas, put them on their drum sets, apply them to their drum sets, and blow up their playing. Along with that, okay, you know that we like the shares are cool, the subscribes are cool, and the thumbs up, right? We'd definitely like to have those just because we'd appreciate them, to be very candid with you. But if we didn't reach the goal, if we failed to hit that target that we were after, please leave us some ideas, some thoughts, some issues that you have down below so that we can circle back around and go deeper into the issue that you brought up so that we can answer that and help you to improve your drumming, your creativity. Maybe we have to get into technique. Maybe there's something you're wondering about, like why is my hi-hat so low? Or, you know, why are all these cymbal stands here without cymbals? Whatever the question is, right? Please ask those questions because, again, we want to improve the ideas that we're sharing with you so that you can improve your drumming. So, my friends, this is this week's Grid Groove session. Thank you very much for tuning in. I personally am definitely excited about the next few Grid Grooves that are coming up because they're actually pushing me to grow quite a bit, which always excites me as a musician. So I guess that's it. We're going to call it quits today. I am Eric Anderson. This is the Grid Grooves channel where the single goal is just to share ideas of how to take the 4-2-1 grid and apply it to the drum set, which I call it, which is known as the Grid Groove system. So that's it. We're out, and I will see you on the next video, okay? Bye-bye.